Good afternoon and welcome to online session number 18 for the Beerwah Landsborough proposed local plan area. So I want to say before we kick off that I hope everyone's okay with the weather that's currently underway and has been this morning out at Beerwah. In terms of today's presentation, I just want to say Council is committed to undertaking thorough community engagement for this project, while also keeping our community and staff safe. That's our highest priority. Due to the current COVID-19 health risks, some of our scheduled in-person events have had to be cancelled. But community input is important, and to ensure we receive as much feedback as possible, Council has scheduled these live online sessions, as well as utilising a range of other online tools to receive your input. You can also visit a display at any of our Council customer service desks, libraries or mobile libraries, and that will include hard copies of the information and the surveys. So in terms of today's session, just a bit of housekeeping. This is a 1 hour information out session to you. Regardless, you're encouraged to provide feedback to us via the website or by phone or by email. And you can do that until the 31st of March 2022. And I will, through the second part of the session, take you through that website so you know how to make contact with us. For the session itself, we're utilising Microsoft Teams Live. For you to engage with us, you need to use the chat function. To enable that chat function, if you're on a PC, there's a chat bubble at the top right-hand corner. If you click on that, it'll bring up the chat function for you. Similarly, on an iPhone or another mobile device, just click on that function and it'll bring it up. And we encourage you to put your questions through both in this first half of the session and then as we continue into the second. And we will try to answer as many questions as possible before the end of the session. But the session is about getting information out, so we will use some of that time to take you through the consultation website, so you know where the information is and you know how to provide feedback, so you know how to contact us. If there are any outstanding questions at the end, you can still contact us by phone or email, and we can give you some one-on-one time to assist you. Now, we recognise not everyone may be able to make the presentation today, and there's obviously events going on at Beerwah, so we are recording this presentation. In fact, we're recording all 18 individual sessions and we're putting them up on the event page. So following this session, I recommend probably by Monday, jump on to the event page and you should have a link to rewatch the session and then yeah, hopefully it'll assist you with getting to making a survey. So before we commence with today's session, on behalf of Council, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Sunshine Coast local government area, the Kabi Kabi peoples of the coastal plains and northern hinterland, and the Yinabera peoples of the southern hinterland. We wish to pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important role First Nations people continue to play within the Sunshine Coast community. Look, in terms of today's presentation, we've got Jade, who's our Principal Strategic Planner, to take you through the first half of the session, explaining what the preliminary consultation is about. I'm your moderator, I'm Paul. I'll be monitoring questions as they come in, so by all means put your questions through, and then I'll facilitate that in the second half of the session where Jade will assist with answering those questions. So I'll hand you over to Jade. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. So just quickly take you through the purpose of this session. So basically, we're just wanting to inform you about the new planning scheme project and the preliminary consultation that we're currently undertaking. Also to explain how this current proposal relates to your local area, so Beerwah Landsborough proposed local plan area, and to provide you with some information on how you can get involved. So just starting at the basics, so what is a planning scheme? So basically, a planning scheme is a legal document that regulates development. So it manages land use in a local government area. It basically tells you where and how land is developed, what you can build on your land, what your neighbour can build. So really, really important document and really important to get involved and have your say in this process. So basically, what the planning scheme will do is set out a vision and strategies to manage future growth and development, as I said. It sets out development assessment policies, so codes and those kinds of things that that development is assessed against. So, you know, subdivision, changes of use, that kind of thing. We need to balance a lot of competing interests in a planning scheme, so environmental, economic, social. Our current planning scheme, we do have one in place at the moment, is the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014. For this new planning scheme project, council's basically under the Planning Act required to review their planning scheme every 10 years. So council resolved to prepare a new planning scheme in January last year, and that was following a review of the current planning scheme, which was undertaken in 2020. So that review found that the current planning scheme's operating pretty well, but it could do with some updating, particularly in terms of state and local government policy that has moved on since that planning scheme was prepared, and also new data, those kinds of things. It also, the review, preparing a new planning scheme will enable us to keep up to date with current community expectations and views on development and how it should be managed. So this is a multi-year project. It's a very complex project and it has many steps. At this point, the project's intended to be completed by 2024, so that would be the adoption of the new planning scheme. And once adopted, it would replace the current 2014 planning scheme. So in terms of the planning framework, it's really important to understand that council works within a state planning framework when we prepare a planning scheme. So we prepare the planning scheme under the Planning Act and the planning regulation. And we are required by law to be consistent with state and regional policy. So those are things like the state planning policy and the South East Queensland Regional Plan, which some of you may be familiar with, and that's a document that sets things like the urban footprint, or the area in which urban development can occur in South East Queensland. The new planning scheme will also seek to integrate more local policies. So council's been very busy over the last few years preparing a range of high-level policy documents. So right through from our corporate plan, our new corporate plan, through to our environment and livability strategy, community strategy, the regional economic development strategy, integrated transport strategy, as well as the coastal hazard adaptation strategy, Sunshine Coast Design Book or the Yellow Book. So there's a whole range of other local policy that we'll be seeking to integrate into the planning scheme as much as it relates to land use and development. So this diagram here just shows basically the basic steps involved in the preparation of the planning scheme. So we are at step 2, so we're very early in the process. It's really important for council to get out there early and talk to the community before we get too far along. So basically at the moment, we are undertaking our preliminary consultation on key regional and local directions. And this is the first of 2 stages of public consultation for the project. So once we've got feedback from you on this, on these directions, we will then go off, draft the planning scheme, go to a state interest review. So the state has to sign off on the planning scheme before we go out then to formal public consultation, which will be there at step 5. So that's the second opportunity for you to have your say on the planning scheme. And that's when you can expect to see things like zoning maps of maximum building heights, those kinds of things. So that's the real detail, the codes, that's the real detail of the planning scheme proper. We're quite early on in the process now with our high level directions. So as I said, quite a long project, multiple steps, and we're hoping for adoption in 2024. Some of the steps that we need to undertake, particularly the state interest reviews and the ministerial review at step 7, are not within council's control how long those take. So, but yeah, at this point in time, we're hoping for 2024 for this new planning scheme to be adopted. Okay, so just a bit about the preliminary consultation generally. So this step that we're doing, this really early step, is not actually required under state legislation, so it's not mandatory. But council, as I said, sees it as really important to get out there and get the views of the community early in the process before we start to draft the planning scheme proper. And this is really an opportunity to get that feedback in early. So at the moment, we're seeking feedback primarily via a number of online surveys. So Paul will take you through where to find those a bit later, but there's one for every local area and one for the region as a whole. And there's also a whole lot of other information on the website as well. At this point, so we finish our consultation at the end of this month. Okay, so in terms of what we're actually consulting on, we have a vision for what the Sunshine Coast could look like in 2041. There's a snapshot of it there on the screen. Basically, it's focusing, you'll see our Sunshine Coast Council vision there about being Australia's most sustainable region, healthy, smart, creative, and it's expanding on that in terms of the land use context. So we've got a vision statement. We've also got, as I said, draft regional and local planning directions to manage growth and change on the Sunshine Coast and in our local areas going forward to 2041. So basically, these directions seek to reflect what the community value and what they would like to see in the future based on consultation Council has undertaken in the past few years on other projects. So we've kind of tried to pull that in. It seeks to balance, as I said, a variety of different needs and interests. And we're also seeking feedback on some topical planning issues or hot topics. So again, Paul will take you through those on the website. Okay, so in order to achieve the proposed vision, and you can read the full vision on our website, basically it's supported by some more detailed vision statements, but also proposed regional planning directions, and they're set out under 5 themes. So there's shaping sustainable growth theme, and that one's really about population and housing, how we're going to accommodate, how and where we're going to be accommodating growth on the Sunshine Coast. Smart economy, so that one is about obviously economic growth, our centres network, our industrial areas, those kinds of things. A healthy and resilient environment, so that theme is obviously talking about the natural environment and the protection of that, but also climate resilience, natural hazards such as flooding, and how they should be managed in the context of development. A strong and creative community of communities, so that theme's really focusing on things like heritage, community facilities, the character of the Sunshine Coast, really, really important, our community of communities and the individual character of local areas. And then we've got connected people and places, which is about our transportation and communications networks. Okay, so this map is basically a settlement, it's what we call a settlement pattern map. So it's a map of the Sunshine Coast and it's showing the broad land uses in a spatial sense that you could expect to see out to 2041 in terms of where different types of development would be located. So some of the key elements of this map, the coastal living area there in the pink, the hinterland living area, which is the brown, just really making sure we're distinguishing between the different character in those 2 areas. The rural residential areas as well, which are in the kind of lighter orange colour, our rural areas, and our large conservation areas. This map's also showing our centres network, so they're the red dots, and Maroochydore being our principal or largest centre on the Sunshine Coast, the CBD, if you like, of the Sunshine Coast. And then we've also got our key green spaces. So these include what we call the regional interurban break, which is that large expanse of green space and forestry land that separates the Sunshine Coast from Greater Brisbane. That's in the hatching there at the southern end of the Sunshine Coast, you can see. There's the Lower Mooloolah River floodplain and also the Blue Heart or the Maroochy River floodplain. So these are really key strategic green spaces for council that play various roles in the land use and shaping the settlement pattern of the Sunshine Coast. The other key elements on this map are obviously our transport corridors. So we have the North Coast Rail Line, we have the proposed CAMCOS heavy rail corridor going off from Biwa to the coastal areas. And we also have our mass transit corridor shown there, as well as the major roads, obviously. Okay, so So local planning. So council is really, really keen to protect our community of communities here on the Sunshine Coast. So each local area under these directions has its own proposed vision statement and planning directions to manage future growth and development in that local area. And council's really keen to do this. Obviously, we need to recognise that not one size fits all in terms of regulation provisions to regulate development across the Sunshine Coast. We have lots of unique communities and we need to treat them differently. So the proposed local planning directions, they respond to a number of things, basically key constraints and opportunities for each of these local areas. What we know from previous consultation exercises about community values and aspirations, and also some of the local issues and challenges that have come up in these areas over the last few years and under the operation of the current planning scheme as well. Okay, so this map is showing the 18 local plan areas proposed across the Sunshine Coast. You'll see Beerwah Landsborough there in the yellow. So we're also seeking feedback on the boundaries of these local areas because they are different to the current planning scheme. So again, Paul will take you through the website and where you can have a say on those. We've tried at this point in time to basically use communities of interest for land use planning purposes. The boundaries are usually based on suburb or locality boundaries, or in some cases major infrastructure such as a major road. Okay, so having gone through the regional directions, the directions for the whole of the Sunshine Coast, we really want to focus now on your local area, so the Beerwah Landsborough proposed local plan area. So as we saw on the map previously, this proposed local plan area is located in the southern central part of the Sunshine Coast, west of the Bruce Highway. Localities or suburbs included in the local plan area include parts of Beerwah, Landsborough, Peachester, Mount Melham, Crowhurst and Barubin. The North Coast Railway obviously runs north-south through the LPA. And this LPA, importantly, also includes the Beerwah East Major Development Area, which is yet to be developed. So it's a major growth area, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. It also includes Australia Zoo and some large poultry farms as well, and substantial rural activities and rural land. So just before we get to the local directions, it's just really important to keep in mind the role of each of our local areas in the region as a whole. So in a region-wide context, this particular local plan area of Beerwah and Landsborough provides for, as I said, the major new community or expansion area of Beerwah East. It has quite clearly some fabulous regional landscape values, particularly around the Glasshouse Mountains. Rural production, really important in this local area. Hinterland living, rural and rural residential living. Tourism, as I said, being Australia Zoo being a really key tourist destination, and also major infrastructure. So we've got the North Coast Rail Line in particular, Steve Irwin Way, but also the proposed Camcos heavy rail line, which spurs from Beerwah out towards Caloundra. So as I said earlier, each of the draft local plan areas includes a draft vision statement. So a vision statement is basically a word picture of what you could expect an area to look like into the future. So you can read the full vision statement on our website. I'll just go through the key points here. So basically, we see this area as continuing to be a mosaic of urban, rural and semi-rural landscapes. Beerwah East itself will offer a series of well-connected, transit-oriented and walkable neighbourhoods supported by a major centre and industrial area. And I'll go into a bit more detail about Beerwah East. Beerwah itself providing for a wide range of services, shopping and employment in a compact and walkable and attractive town centre. Landsborough retaining its rich heritage, village character and traditional main streets. The urban areas of the townships of Beerwah and Landsborough being predominantly low density and low rise. So So not too much change in those traditional low density areas. Rural residential communities mainly continuing as they are, enjoying that semi-rural lifestyle on large lots. And outside of those areas, rural communities we expect will just continue to accommodate those rural activities. Okay, so in terms of the directions to achieve this vision, Beerwah East. So basically, the direction here is to, along with the state government, to continue to plan for the Beerwah East major development area. So for those of you that don't know, Beerwah East is a large area just to the east of Beerwah and Landsborough in the forestry area that has been identified for quite a while now as a possible urban growth area. So in the current Southeast Queensland Regional Plan, it is identified within the urban footprint and for urban purposes as a major development area. So basically the state government is the lead on the planning for this area, but the requirement is for it to be development ready within the next decade or so, basically. So it is quite a large area. As I said, council will be involved in planning for that. It's not clear at this point exactly what the planning framework will be for that area, whether it will be in the planning scheme or whether it might be something like a priority development area like Aura, Caloundra South, because it's a similar size as Aura. So either way, there will be a community consultation on that particular proposal in terms of how it looks, how it functions, that kind of thing. So that's Beerwah East. In terms of the rest of the local plan area, we basically, there's a bit happening here, so I'll go through them. There's an area in the southeast of Beerwah which has been identified for a while as a further investigation area. So this is east of Steve Irwin Way and south of Coochin Creek, currently Pineapple Farms. So that area is identified, as I said, in the current planning scheme as a further investigation area for possible future employment. And for this planning scheme, we're looking at possibly zoning that area for employment or industrial purposes. So obviously a key change there, and yeah, if you've got a view on that, important to have your say. Beerwah itself, so at the moment, Beerwah is identified as a major activity centre. With Beerwah East coming online, and it does depend on the timing of Beerwah East, the role of Beerwah Centre itself may change just because of the new centre coming out of the ground close by. So that direction there is basically just flagging that possibility. That said, we want to really make sure that we're retaining Beerwah and Landsborough as compact centres and discouraging any out-of-centre development. We want those centres to work effectively, to be community and social and economic hubs. So just leaving Beerwah for the moment and up to Landsborough. So obviously great heritage character in Landsborough, and obviously we really want to continue to protect that. We are aware in Landsborough of a potential need for some more local centre zoned land. So we're looking at some possibilities there on the western side of the railway, adjacent to the current centre zone, local centre zone. Again in Landsborough, at the moment there is what we call a specialised centre zone that runs along Caloundra Street on the entry to Landsborough. And basically it hasn't been taken up in terms of development really, but what this zone allows, and it's been in the planning scheme for quite a while now, is it allows things like really large shops or showrooms, and we just want to have another look at that and see if that's really really appropriate for the entry to a town like Landsborough. And staying in Landsborough again, there's some land on the eastern side directly on the eastern side of the railway station that is currently zoned for industry purposes, that we're possibly looking at some land use changes as well there, just to basically try and take advantage of the area being so close to that railway station. Okay, so in a more general sense for the local plan area, we are also looking at any possibilities for some greater housing diversity close to Landsborough and Beerwah town centres. So that would be things like townhouses, dual occupancies, any opportunities for that kind of development. Retaining in those traditional suburban areas, looking to retain the large urban and rural residential minimum lot sizes. So, you know, that's again coming back to character and the character of these, particularly our hinterland townships, where we want to see those traditional, larger size suburban blocks. We want to continue to maintain the strong separate identity of all of our communities across the Sunshine Coast, but in this sense, particularly Landsborough and Beerwah. So part of that is retaining a strong interurban break or a rural and green space area between the two towns, to just make sure we're retaining those. It's clear, you know, this is Landsborough, this is Beerwah. Australia Zoo, so they have a current master plan. These directions just basically talk to that and continuing with the development of their current development in accordance with their current master plan. In terms of habitat and biodiversity values, looking at maintaining limits on vegetation clearing, subdivision in rural areas. So again, maintaining the current limits on that, and that is set for council under the South East Queensland Regional Plan. So outside of the urban footprint, in those regional landscape and rural living areas, it's 100 hectares minimums lot size, basically to retain that regional landscape and rural production, those really important values of those areas. But we are possibly looking at some conversion of, this would be fairly limited, but rural residential areas, maybe some are looking at whether any of those are suitable for more intensive residential development, and by that I mean urban type subdivisions or low density residential rather than rural residential. Okay, so having gone through all of that, there's quite a bit of opportunity for change or growth here. So obviously Beerwah East, major development area, high growth, high change possible there once the planning framework is in place for that. In terms of the remainder of the LPA, we're probably looking at a low to moderate change from the existing planning scheme provisions. So there is some built-in capacity or built-in growth or development potential in these areas currently. So yeah, low to moderate from the existing planning scheme and probably moderate change from the current on-ground situation. Okay, so basically we need you to tell us what you think about these directions. Do you agree with the proposed draft vision and the planning directions for the area? Are the boundaries of the local plan area right? Is there anything that you particularly want to see protected or enhanced in the planning scheme? And what types of development would you like to see encouraged or supported in your local area? So definitely go and have a look, have a read. Like I said, there's loads of information on our website and Paul will take us through that. But yeah, definitely keen for everyone to have their say. There's individual surveys for every local plan area. It's 5 to 10 minute survey, quite short. So make sure you jump in there and have a look and let us know what you think, basically. So just in summary, Council's preparing a new planning scheme. We're very early in the process at the moment, and this preliminary consultation really is the first of two main opportunities that you will have to have your say on the planning scheme. The preliminary consultation is underway and it closes at the end of this month, 31st of March. As I said, go online, fill out our surveys. If you've got any questions or you don't understand some of the directions, feel free to contact us at any time. We've got a range of mechanisms through which you can do that, and Paul will take us through that. So this concludes this portion of the presentation. Thank you so much for your attendance. I'm just going to hand back over to Paul now, and Paul will facilitate the Q&A session. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Jade. Okay, so look, in terms of the next part of the session, we call the Q&A part of the session. It is about half an hour. So we've had some questions already, and I'll encourage you just to keep putting questions through to us, and I'll try to relay them through to Jade in this session. It's got to be very clear, this session is 1 hour long. The purpose of it is to get information out to you about the preliminary consultation and information specific to your local plan area. So part of that requires us to take you through the website. You need to know what the information is, how to access it, where the surveys are, and how to contact us so that you can go through that process. But in terms of this part of the session, there's a QR code at the bottom. The QR code, everyone should be familiar with them these days. If you scan that, it will take you through to the website. If you wander around BOI, you should see some banners erected, which we've had put up as part of the consultation. It'll have the QR code on it as well. So if you just scan that, it will take you to the website as well. So yeah, by all means, keep putting questions through to me, and we'll do our best to have answer them as we go along. So what we tend to do is just sort of start at the top and work our way down through the questions. And I've written some down as well as we've gone, just to keep on track with it. First question, so why draft a new planning scheme?
Yeah, look, so Sunshine Coast is obviously a high growth, high change area. So it's really important for us to keep our planning up to date. Otherwise, what you get is speculative development, and it's really not helpful to anyone. So we need, under the Act, to review our planning scheme every 10 years. That's a requirement. So we've done that and had a look and thought, yep, okay, it's time to prepare a new planning scheme. That said, a lot of what we have in our current planning scheme will, be used to inform the new planning scheme as well. But yeah, it's basically really important to continue to proactively plan for a region like Sunshine Coast.
Right. One thing I have to say, because we have had this come up a few times with the questions, we cannot comment on site-specific matters, and we can't comment on live development applications. In that regard, you have to go to the Development Information Officers staff at Council, or use Development Eye, and that will assist you in terms of finding that information. We're very much about the preliminary consultation and the matters within the planning directions, and we'll try and assist as best we can. So another question about, which again maybe it's a bit more site specific, but can you subdivide your land if it's rural on the new scheme?
Yeah, so I touched on that in the directions, and basically within the regional landscape and rural production area, within which vast majority of our rural zone land is located, the minimum lot size is 100 hectares. So the answer to that is generally no, and definitely not for urban or rural residential purposes. And again, the reason for that is really to protect the rural production values, really, really important, and the regional landscape values of those areas. And that comes from the South East Queensland Regional Plan and from the state government as well.
Yeah, that's a good question that's come in. It's sort of related to that, and it's one of the directions. How are we going to balance the proposal to retain larger urban and rural residential minimum lot size at the same time as allowing the conversion of some rural resi land to more intensive? Yeah,
so basically that would be in really discrete areas. So you would see this when we get to the next stage, which is the zoning itself. So what we're saying there is, in the areas that are intended to stay as low density res or rural residential zoning, they will continue to be those large lots. If there are some areas that we look at and think are suitable for change, then their zone would change basically, and therefore the intent for that area. But at the moment, really looking that they would be quite discrete areas that we'd be looking at to convert over. It's quite difficult to convert rural residential areas over in general to low density res, just because they're in such diverse land ownership, and it makes it really tricky to coordinate. So yeah, it should be quite discrete.
Yep, and coordination of infrastructure to services and developments as well. Just jumping around because a few questions are quite interrelated. This is a really interesting question. can the planning scheme assist to reduce the cost of residential development?
Yeah.
That's quite a difficult one. I think that really sits within the scope of what the preliminary consultation's trying to do.
Yeah, look, it's one of our hot topics. So Paul will take us through those, affordable living and affordable housing. And look, it's a really, really complex issue, obviously. What the planning scheme can seek to do is really to ensure we've got enough supply, which we're constantly monitoring, but also diversity.
Yes.
We can't continue to have households that are 1 or 2 people with huge 3-4 bedroom houses on large lots. It's just not matched. It's not matching the housing needs. So we look at those housing needs, providing those opportunities for diverse housing, particularly close to our centres, those kinds of things. So yeah, and they're, those types of housing obviously are a bit cheaper as well. But yeah, look, that is a really complex issue. Taxation, there's all sorts of things that play there, of which planning, land use planning is only one. But definitely one of our hot topics, and if you've got views on that, go and have a look at that particular hot topic and give us some feedback.
I'll certainly take you to that when we look at the website.
Yeah.
And that speaks to another question about the fact that we've talked about housing diversity in Landsborough and Beerwah. Have we through this process identified specific areas for that?
Not yet. So basically what we're saying at this point is, look, we think we might need to look at some areas, and if the community has any ideas about where that might be appropriate or where it may not be appropriate also, we're happy to hear that. So basically that will then inform the next stage, which is the zoning, which is where you will see exactly the areas that we're looking at, but hasn't been determined at this point.
Question about height restrictions or height limits. Are there any height limits proposed for Beerwah?
So we do have current height limits in Beerwah and across the whole Sunshine Coast. So they're set under the current planning scheme. There's a range in Beerwah, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but if you want to write into us, we can give you those, or you can go onto our website and they're on our mapping system. So look, as part of the new planning scheme, there may be some changes to those. As I said, that's kind of detailed next step. We haven't determined those yet, but if you have views about what you see as appropriate height limits in Beerwah, definitely let us know.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, these are draft proposals. You're only step 2 of an 8-step process. We've come to you early on in a drafting to hear your opinion. So if you feel like the height limit should be increased or decreased, let us know. And interestingly, we've also got a frequently asked questions section on the website, which talks about height. So it explains height in the context of Sunshine Coast. What is low, medium, and high? And I'll take you to that. There's a question about indication that Beerwah may include a major shopping centre or complex in the new scheme. Are we looking at increasing the centre in any way?
So there was a development proposal which is currently under appeal for a Coles in Beerwah. So that's under appeal, and that will run its course. That was outside of the current centre. Beerwah itself, we've possibly we're not looking certainly at any major expansion of the centre zone there. As I said, there is the issue of Beerwah East. The new community of Beerwah East coming online, and there will be a major centre there. So there will be new shopping facilities, that kind of thing, over at Beerwah East when that is developed. So yeah, I mean there is still quite a bit of centre zone land in Beerwah. So look, there's no intention to really change that too much at this point.
Another question, which is this has been quite a common question through the sessions that we've done to date. We just need to clarify where the scheme has a role to play or manages these aspects. So it talks about traffic management, and specifically along Old Gympie Road. Is it the role of the scheme to upgrade roads or to implement traffic management measures?
Not specifically. So those roads, depending on whether they're state or local, that kind of traffic management is really dealt with through other mechanisms. That said, the planning scheme does have road networks, road hierarchies, that development, when development applications come in, they need to be consistent with, they need to provide certain, be it upgrade works or contributions to contribute to upgrades depending on their impact on the road network. Yeah. So that's kind of where the planning scheme gets involved in that, yeah.
And again, I mean, it may be the state control road versus the local road as well. There's a number of different factors there. This may be a good time to jump over to the website and just show you some of those aspects, because some of the questions we're getting are kind of speaking to the information on there, you know, about how to find the information, what do these barometers mean, for example. So if you just give me a second, I'll just jump over and share the website for you. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that now. So we've gone to the homepage of the Sunshine Coast Council website. Google it if you can't find it, and this is then go straight to the homepage, and you look up in the top left-hand corner. There's a little icon with the word sites next to it, and that's a drop-down. So if you click on it, it brings you to the Have Your Say page. So click on that. Have Your Say is our consultation portal. This is where we store all of our projects that are being consulted on, whether they're open or closed. And right at the top, you can see new planning scheme projects. So if you just click on that, it'll take you to our homepage for the project. So this is where you'll start to then navigate out all aspects of the consultation, all the information. And right at the top, this is what we're seeking your feedback on. So the planning for our region, which is the proposed vision to 2041, the regional planning directions. Planning for our local areas, so the proposed local planning directions for the 18 proposed areas, and the hot planning topics, which we've touched on and just mentioned previously. So these are 3 areas we want you to go to. But I have to say that in terms of approaching this consultation this time around, we recognise that people consume information in different ways. So we've tried to use a number of visual tools as well as just traditional text-based information. So we've got short videos produced that you can have a look at in terms of explaining the project, straight down to the traditional text documents. So there's 2 PDFs here which contain the entire consultation documentation from the proposed vision in part 1 to the part 2, which is the 18 proposed local planning areas and their direction. So if you want to go and read the information, you can just jump onto those 2 documents. And just a reminder, you've got until 31st of March 2022 to give us your feedback, and I'll tell you how to do that in a second. As you proceed through the information and as you're absorbing what we're telling you today, you may have questions. You can give us a call. So we've got planners on the phone during business hours every day until 31st of March. So that's the phone number. You can give us a call or you can drop us an email. Similarly, you can request a call back. So if you just give us your details, and a planner will call you back and assist with your questions. At the same time, we've put a lot of effort into thinking, well, what could be the common questions that arise through this process for you. So we've made a list of them, anything from, why are we doing this? What are we seeking feedback on, through to, as I mentioned earlier, well, what do you mean by low, medium, high? So we've given you some details around there in terms of the Sunshine Coast context. So what does that mean? So that's really useful. Hopefully that will probably answer some initial questions for you. And as we come back up, the ultimate goal that we have with this process is the engagement is to get you to answer our surveys. So they're really quick, simple surveys, and there's one on the regional directions, one for each of the local plan areas, 18. So, we are here today to talk about Beerwah, but you may be interested in one of the other areas, or may have interests in terms of work or otherwise that you want to make comment on. By all means, answer one of the other surveys as well. Answer all of them if you've got time. We also got the hot planning topics survey as well. So I'll take you through to them on each of these tiles. So starting with the regional information, planning for regions. So that we've got a homepage for this. And again, we recognize that not everybody, consumes or reads information the same way. Today, we're all used to social media and we're used to visual cues in terms of information. So these are word pictures in terms of communicating the vision with some visual cues as to what we're trying to communicate. So this is called a story map. So it's well worth just having a read through it. And we've got all the different themes at the top here. So take your time and have a look at that and see if that assists you to understand what it is we're trying to communicate in terms of the vision. Similarly, if you just want to dive into the detail, the 2 documents are there in one place. So, but ultimately, we want you to get to a point where you can answer this survey, and this is the Regional Planning Directions Survey. So there's actually 3 key surveys to be taken. This is the first of them, and do that by the 31st of March. Now, again, give us a call if you get stuck. Even if you get stuck with the website, give us a call and we'll help you navigate through that. We've also put on this tool, which is Ask a Question. You know, if you just sitting up late at night and needed to have something burning, press on this button and you can ask a question. Now that when you put that question through, it goes to one of our planners and will be uploaded to this page. And we have a whole series of questions which have already been submitted and answered to. So feel free to scan through those, see if your question's been answered already, or give us a question, and we'll certainly assist with that. So going back up to the top, I'll take you through to the second part of the website. And now we're getting into the local planning for our local areas. So like I said, there's 18 proposed local planning areas. This is the home page for them because there's 18 separate home pages for each of those local plan areas, which you can read. Now, if you want to jump straight down to that, your local plan area, what you do is go to this interactive map, click on it, and that'll take you straight to the page. Now, we recognize that some people may be a little bit unsure about where they are in respect of that local plan area. They may be close to the boundary, for example, or unsure about the boundaries. Well, we've embedded this second tool into the website. And this tool allows you to simply punch in an address, put the address, and it'll take you straight to your location on the map. And then you can clearly tell whether you're in a certain local plan area. But also there's a second important purpose of this map. It's to add a marker. If you have an issue with the boundaries, you want to tell us that the boundaries actually should be in a different location for a certain reason, put a marker on and tell us what it is. We're really keen to hear that because these are proposals. You may have another opinion, and we want to hear that. So have a go at that as well. So coming back to the map itself, like I said, this is interactive, so you can go quickly to any local plan area by hovering over it and then clicking on it. In this case, we're going to go to BRY Landsborough, and that's why we're here. And there we go, straight to the BRY Landsborough dedicated proposed local planning directions page. This has got everything. I have to say, everything you're seeing as I'm taking you to the website is what we've shown you in the presentation. It's what Jade has been communicating to you. So hopefully some of this information is familiar as we work through it. Again, visual tools to enable you to sort of get a sense of what it is that we're trying to communicate. So you can click on these little icons and they will bring up various bits of information for you. Similar, as I said before, some people like just to read the document. Just give me the document. I want to know everything. Give it to me as simple as I can. This is the best way to go. So this is the BRY Landsborough proposed local planning area page, and this document's got everything from the description of the local plan area to the draft vision. Here's the role of the local plan area in the region. You've seen that from the presentation, and then down to the proposed local planning directions. And there was a question about the level of change. This is expecting the barometers. Again, a visual tool of communicating that. So clearly in the top, you can see BRY East. It's yet to come out of the ground, and there's going to be a huge amount of change as a consequence of that over the next 20 years. And then the level of change expected through the rest of the local plan area in terms of what's possible through the current scheme and what's actually occurred on the ground. But have a look at the local plan directions and tell us what you think. Importantly, tell us if you agree with the proposed vision and proposed planning directions for your local area. Do you agree with the boundaries of the local plan area? And is there anything you particularly value that perhaps we've missed that you want to see protected or enhanced in the scheme? And what types of development would you like to see encouraged or supported in your local area? So there's some 4 really important questions through this process. And importantly, when we get down to the next part of the plan, we'll be able to show you the boundaries of the local plan area. So this is the proposed local plan boundaries for BRY Landsborough. So this is probably the most amount of detail if you want to get into what those boundaries are. So have a look at it. Tell us if you agree. And the best way to do that is go to this website, and I'll take you to the survey component so you understand where you can provide that feedback. If you're comfortable and you've got to that point, if you're not comfortable, give us a call, and then we'll we'll try and assist you and you know, give you a bit of guidance in terms of looking for information or clarifying matters. But really, we want to get you to take in the survey. So here's a short survey on BOI Landsborough, and there's 18 of them for each of those different local plan areas. So please go there and do that by the 31st of March, yeah? And then we come back up, we'll take you to the third component of the consultation process, which is the hot topics. So hot topics, third tile on the homepage, click on that. What you will see is the top 10 topics, themes, things that have been emerging over the last number of years through the operation of the plan scheme. These are also things that we've had feedback over the years. So we've seen coming forward is creating some sort of issue or other matter that perhaps the new scheme needs to deal with. So we did talk about housing diversity and, well, how can the scheme assist with the cost of housing? Well, affordable living and housing affordability. It's very apparent right across Australia and for us as a region. Car parking is a matter, carports, climate change, the design of multiple dwellings, dual occupancies of secondary dwellings, service stations, short-term accommodation, the supply and use of industrial land and uses in rural areas. So a lot of things are quite applicable to this local plan area, but I'll show you what to do in terms of responding to the information. Each of these 10 tiles has information behind it, so just click onto it. And then the document will come up and it will explain to you what the topic is, how the current scheme is trying to manage or respond to that particular topic, and then what are the issues that we are finding and what we propose to do in terms of moving forward to drafting. So what I would say is have a read of this. We really want to hear if there are any other issues, or do you not agree with the issues that we've identified? Do you agree with what we are proposing to do, or are there other solutions? We need to know that. I mean, again, we're really early on, step 2 of an 8-step process. So it's your opportunity to get in and assist us with drafting by telling us what you think. And the way to do that in terms of the topics is just to go to the survey, which is embedded into the website. So click one, click all of them and make your individual responses, and then submit it through to us. So again, do that by the 31st of March, so we can put it into the process. One of the other, I suppose, most important aspects of this website, because this contains everything you need to know, is the information session. So hopefully you've arrived at this session today by coming to this calendar, but if you haven't just to have used the link, it's important to know to come back to this element of this part of the website, probably in about 2 days, and you can re-watch the session which has been recorded. And in fact, we've got you'll see the other 16 we've done to date, uploaded or being uploaded to the website. So again, if you have an interest in another area and you just happen to have missed that session, each of them, they're about an hour long, same format as this. So yeah, go and click in and take your time. But ultimately, like if you do have questions, and I should say as well, not everyone is particularly comfortable with online. Hopefully everyone finds it easy enough to watch this back on YouTube. But if you're uncomfortable doing the information or respond to the survey online, we have got paper copies at the libraries, our customer service desks, and the mobile library. So pick up a paper copy and fill that in. You can drop it off at the counter, and that certainly will be acceptable as well. So looking, the bit of time we've got left, we'll just run through some questions that have come through. And again, the questions are all these questions relevant to the process? And then there's a question about BOI East. Do we know the date when BOI East will come online?
Look, no, not exactly. The SCQ regional plan talks about it, which came in 2017, talks about it being development ready within the next decade. So, yeah, council will work with the state government. The state government is the lead on planning for this area, but council will be working with the state government on planning for that area and trying to get it up and running to try and meet some of that demand for greenfield or new subdivision, basically. Yeah.
As a question around, I think it's CAM costs. They're asking, is CAM costs part of the plan scheme? Is CAM costs reflected?
CAM costs is reflected. It's reflected in the current planning scheme. It will continue to be reflected and protected as a corridor. Council obviously is not doesn't deliver the infrastructure. That will be the state government. However, yeah, we absolutely try to integrate land use planning and transport planning into our scheme.
Right. There's a question here about how to access the maps that show proposed changes with rezoning.
Yeah, so this is basically what we were talking about earlier. So we're a bit further far from that just now. So we're not quite at zoning maps at this point. That will come at step 5, which is the next major community consultation we'll be doing, which will be on the draft planning scheme itself. So we're not quite there yet. We're just preparing for that, and we're using the feedback we get from this process to prepare those maps, all of those provisions. So at this point, we've still got a few stages to get through, notably the state interest review process, which the state has to sign off on the planning scheme, the draft scheme, before we put it out to community. But at this point, I think that draft planning scheme with the new zoning maps would be sometime next year.
So good, yeah. And as leads on the question, I mean, when do we expect the new scheme to be ready?
Yeah, so at this point, hopefully 2024, we're looking at, and that's going to depend a bit on a few things, but that's what we're aiming for at this point.
State review and other stakeholders.
Yeah. It's a very complex, long process. But absolutely. Give your feedback to us early, really important, so we can get that in.
Is the new plan scheme considering provisions for secondary dwellings?
Yes, so you would have seen Paul showed you the hot topics. So secondary dwellings have been one of those ones that has come up for us a bit over the last few years in terms of the current planning scheme provision. So basically a secondary dwelling, for those of you that don't know, is a granny flat. It's considered part of the dwelling house. So you can basically do a small dwelling, self-contained, as part of your dwelling house, and there's provisions around that in the planning scheme that regulate that. So we're aware there's been some issues with those, and we are proposing to relook at that. So if you've got any views on secondary dwellings, then let us know. Absolutely.
Get onto the hot topics and respond to the survey. So definitely happy to hear that. There's been a couple more questions about how to find the information. Hopefully the walkthrough of the website has assisted with that, and you do. I just can't emphasize enough, if you get stuck or you have any questions and even find it difficult to navigate, and hopefully you don't find it difficult to navigate the website, but if you do, just give us a call and one of us can walk you through that. So it's pretty simple to do. Happy to help. Otherwise, look, there hasn't been any more questions now in a few minutes. We're approaching the end of the session. Just want to say I hope everyone's okay out in Beerwah. Obviously, it's been quite a bit of weather through there, and there's a bit more to come, so we're cognizant of that. And if anyone you know has missed the session as a result of that, do let them know that we will upload the session, probably by Monday at this point in time, and come back to the website, and then you can watch at your leisure, or they can certainly give us a call when it's suitable. But look, otherwise, thank you very much for your attendance and taking your time out of the day. We really appreciate you listening to us.
Thank you.